Welcome to the Rendering the Scene lesson. This is really our last step along the way of creating our Talented Ball project. By the end of this lesson, we should have a completely rendered movie that we can watch where the ball is going to come out in all his glory, lit, shadowed, the whole 9 yards, and bounce out onto our stool and ready to perform.
Can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Now, working our way towards the rendering stage, there's things that must be considered, and we've already worked on several of these different elements, but just to help put things in perspective, after you've modeled and animated a set, you then need to start thinking about the rendering phase. The rendering phase goes a lot deeper than just hitting that render button.
Sure. In fact, we've already been working on a lot of the rendering phase.
For sure. Things that must be considered when you start getting prepared for rendering is things like shading materials and textures, which we've taken care of. We need to worry about lighting and shadows, which we've talked about that as well, and apply a light to our scene. And of course, these lights are going to work directly hand in hand with our shading materials. From there, we need to worry about the cameras we're going to be rendering from, kind of like the real world. At this point, we've been using the perspective camera. Kind of think of this as our eyes in the virtual world. Now we need to bring some cameras in that we're going to be filming through, if you will.
That's right. We're the director. So the director sees the scene, and then he designates where the cameras are going to be looking.
That's right. So we do need to bring in some Maya cameras, and we're going to talk about that in this lesson here. From there, we need to start worrying about rendering methods. In other words, what rendering engine are we going to use? Because Maya offers a few. What settings need to be used? What resolution do we need to render to? What frames are we going to render? Will there be any anti-aliasing? How much anti-aliasing? Will we use any motion blur? Will we use any ray tracing?
Right.
There's a lot of different elements that need to be considered when you're getting ready to do that final render.
Tons of considerations.
And all of these things, they have advantages and disadvantages, so they all need to be weighed. And we will talk about some of those throughout the videos in this lesson. And then finally, there's visual effects or post-production. Fortunately, with our scene here, there is no post-production that we need to do.
That's
Everything's going to be complete the moment you guys hit render and the final frame renders out. So in other lessons, we will need to start talking a little bit about post-production. But remember, this course is to focus on Maya. That is our job. So that's pretty much it. We're going to start out in the next video talking a little bit about cameras. From there, we're going to talk about the render view dialog. We've used it now several times, but let's talk about some of the buttons that are available, like on the toolbar, etc. From there, we're going to take a look at setting render globals. We're going to introduce you to what render globals are. We're going to make the appropriate settings for our project, and then move on. We're also going to set up some motion blur and talk just for a moment about motion blur and what's taking place there. From there, we're going to introduce you guys to batch rendering, and we're going to render out our scene to a whole bunch of different frames, a whole bunch of different bitmaps, if you will.
Then we'll show you how you can take a look at your rendered frames and watch them through Maya's FCheck utility.
That's right, and with that, that'll basically wrap up our Talented Ball project. So, it's a very exciting lesson to bring things to a close. Let's go ahead and get started.
Let's go.